Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your husband's conscious effort so you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today I'm talking about how to know what you're feeling and what to do about it. My guest, Susan, felt so disconnected and unloved because her husband would often stay up until 3 a.m. relaxing, but never with her. Nor did he help out with anything. And she felt like the only parent for their 4 children, which made her feel like she had a 5th child. But today, she says her marriage is wonderful, with her husband always wanting to make her happy, giving her gifts. It's like a honeymoon. She's going to tell us what she did so you can do it too. And the worst relationship advice of the week award is from a doctor who advises that you sit down together with your man, each with pen and paper, to answer 26 questions together. It sounds so helpful, right? Wrong. Brace yourself for some harmful hogwash. All of that is coming up. But first, I'm going to talk about how to know what you're feeling and what to do about it. One of the things I was not very good at back in the bad old days of my marriage was knowing how I felt. I knew I felt bad a lot, but even if I knew how I was feeling, I didn't really know what to do about it. So I mostly complained. That was all I knew to do. But it wasn't good for my marriage, and it wasn't good for my happiness either. And one of the great things to come out of the breakdown in my marriage was that it taught me to focus on myself, to stay on my own paper and pay more attention to me. That was key for helping me be a happier wife and therefore have a happier marriage, since only happy people have happy marriages. And one of the ways I focus on myself and my happiness now is by asking myself how I feel and what I want. And I feel really good most of the time. But if I don't, the way to win the video game I'm playing is to get back to feeling happy and grateful. Kind of the way a good mother can respond to her child's needs for food or a nap or a diaper change or a hug based on the sound of the cry. Knowing how I feel helps me be my own good mom. And sometimes I'm just tired or I'm just hungry, just like that baby. And then it's really simple. I want to rest or I want to eat. But if it's not one of those, then I go down a basic menu of feelings to see if I'm feeling mad, sad, bad, or afraid. That's my mnemonic device that I use to memorize my possible feelings. It's mad, sad, bad, or afraid. And I know it seems like there are a lot more feelings than that, but they all kind of whittle down to these few for me. Like mad can also be frustrated or furious or annoyed, and guilt could be shame, regret, remorse, or embarrassment. And those all fall under the heading of bad for me. And then there's fear. There's afraid. I know I'm afraid because I want to try to control or hide out. I'm back on somebody else's paper, like my husband's, thinking about what he should do so I don't have to face my own challenges or my own desires even. And fear could be, terrified or nervous or anxious. I know when I'm mad or annoyed or furious because usually I want someone else to suffer. I'd like to punish them, or at least to see them slip on a banana peel or get a pie in the face. But whenever I'm mad at someone I love, I know that there's a more tender feeling underneath that. Anger is my defense mechanism for what I'm secretly feeling, which is I'm hurt. I'm hurt. Yeah, I'm feeling ouched. And that makes me so mad. I want the person who did the hurtful thing to hurt too. But their suffering won't actually ease my pain. That's the illusion, right? That's the counterfeit. And trying to punish them with hurtful words or actions will cost me so much. It'll cost me dignity. And it's going to leave me with a terrible emotional hangover. So that's not what I really want. There's no upside that I know of to punishing somebody else. And there's a huge cost for me. So if I can just get back onto my own paper instead of being distracted about how that other person should apologize, usually when I'm hurt, what I really need is a hug or a tissue or maybe a big listening ear and some empathy from someone who loves me. All things that are within my control. Because that was a tender spot that someone just poked. And whether it's tender because I have a sunburn where they just patted me on the back, or if that person was truly thoughtless or downright mean, it doesn't matter much in terms of affecting how I want to respond. Sure, I want to be flaming, flipping furious at times, and that's how I know I'm hurt. That means I'm not okay. I want to be there for myself, to take care of myself and tend to my own needs and not be on someone else's paper. So instead of gearing up to go to battle, putting on my armor, if I can get an ouch out in the moment that it happens, or at least even say ouch to myself, then that empathy that I give myself, oh, that strengthens me. It makes me feel calmer and more secure. So when I'm mad, now I scan for the hurt, which I think of as a more honest feeling than anger. And over time, I've noticed that my ability to tune into my hurt and calmly nurture myself, sometimes it feels like invincibility. Because no matter what anyone says, there's nothing that can detract from the comfort of knowing that I'm not going to abandon myself to go fight City Hall or tell somebody off. It's a big source of confidence, knowing what to do for myself when I'm hurt. But let's say I'm sad, right? Let's say I'm really, really sad about something that's truly tragic. Like when I lost my little brother to a drug overdose. And that's an extreme example, but I was so sad. I was in so much grief, and it lasted a while. And then that sad feeling, it passed. It arose and I experienced it and it was painful. And then it passed. Oh, sure. Sometimes I still feel a wave of sadness about it. And as excruciating as it was, I felt it was also entirely worthwhile to feel that sadness. I had also experienced the gift of having him as my brother. It wasn't needless emotional turmoil. It was part of the essential pain of life. And my experience has been that, like all pure feelings, sadness arises. It wells up in me and it gives me that experience. And then it naturally subsides. And it's worthwhile. It's not like needless emotional turmoil, which is usually familiar and not worthwhile at all. And the way I know the difference is that needless emotional turmoil comes with agitation. It's not pure. It's urgent and desperate and exhausting and fearful. It's like a malware that runs on my computer if I'm not careful about choosing what I focus on wisely. But now that I know how to tell what I'm feeling and what to do about that feeling, I can stop the malware, which gives me confidence about how to show up in my marriage. Knowing what I'm feeling and therefore what I want or need has been such a marriage saver because it's how I keep myself happy. And you know that old adage about happy wife, happy life? Well, it turns out that being that happy wife, it really is all it's cracked up to be for both of us. If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. My guest, Susan, felt so disconnected and unloved because her husband would often stay up until 3 a.m. relaxing, but never with her. Nor did he help out with anything. And she felt like the only parent for their 4 children, which made her feel like she had a 5th child. She couldn't understand why he said she was bossy and that she didn't respect him when she was doing everything. But today, she says her marriage is wonderful, with her husband wanting to make her happy and giving her gifts. It's like a honeymoon. She's going to tell us what she did so you can do it too. Susan, welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast. Thank you so much for coming on to share your story.
Hi, Laura. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, take us back to the beginning. What was your marriage like in the bad old days?
Before the bad old days, there's, of course, the good days. When we got married, we were certain that everything was, perfect. And we didn't know why people said opposite attracts, because we just were in agreement on so much of everything, and everything just seemed wonderful. And then 3 kids in, things got a little more difficult. It turns out that what attracted him to me was, or one of the things that attracted him to me was my sense of organization and task orientation and getting things done. And part of what attracted me to him was his spontaneity and his laissez-faire attitude. And once we had 3 kids, I started really trying to micromanage everything about my children. And I couldn't understand why he couldn't just be my right hand. And I thought, I'm the parent, I'm the mother, I know what's best for them, and I just need your help being my 4th hand and 3rd hand. And I didn't realize how disrespectful that was. I would come home from work, and I work 9 to 3. Very fulfilling job. I love it a lot, but I always my main focus is to be a good mother and a good wife. But somewhere along the way, the focus became to be a good mother. And I forgot about how to be a good wife. And so I need help. I came home late. It was a stressful day. I need help. I needed to cut the potatoes. The peeler is in the middle drawer, but make sure you don't get it wet. And the cutting board, don't cut on the counter because that will ruin the counter. And the kids only eat the potatoes if they're cut, really small pieces. So make sure not to cut it big. And I thought that he should just do all of that because I'm the mother and I need his help in a physical way because I just don't have 4 hands. And he should just cut the potatoes exactly the way I'm instructing because that's what I need, which is so disrespectful. What if my girls don't eat the potatoes? Who cares? What matters is that I give him that job fully up to him to do however he wants. And if he ruins the formica, he'll buy me a new one. And if he ruins the peeler, I'll buy myself a new one. And if the girls don't eat a potato, they'll have harmony in the house, and that will be better for them than the potato. But I didn't know any of that. That's all stuff I've learned from you. So I just told him exactly how to do it. And lo and behold, he never wanted me to help me anymore. It was very demeaning for him. And the same thing with bedtime. I would tell him exactly how the girls fell asleep. So I had my 2 girls first, and then my 2 boys. I would tell him exactly how to put the girls to sleep. And if it was taking too long, I would knock on the door and let him know he's spending too long with bedtime. And if, he got the pajamas on wrong, I would switch it. And then I'd be like, that's not their favorite story. And lo and behold, he did not want to help me with bedtime ever. And I was shocked. He was such a horrible husband, never helping with bedtime.
Horrible.
So the other thing that happened is I didn't know anything about self-care. I thought my job as a woman was to just take care of other people. And if people would talk about self-care, I would say things like, well, I don't need a pedicure or I don't need a manicure. And I didn't realize that walking slowly instead of running, that's a form of self-care. Taking a deep breath before you go into an anxious situation, that could be self-care. And just making sure that you never put yourself, my biggest self-care that I do nowadays is I never put myself in an anxiety provoking situation. So there was a time where I knew, this was only after I read your book. I would have never been able to do it before reading your book. I knew that taking 4 kids into a store would make me yell at least one of them. So I had a rule,
Yeah.
never take 4 kids to a store. And lo and behold, once the good days started, my husband would always offer to take 2 children so that I could only take 2 children on the errand that needed to happen. Because I never put myself in a situation where I know that it's going to be hard for me to stay calm. So back to the bad old days. I didn't know anything about self-care, and I thought I always had to be busy. One embarrassing situation example is I had the whole house clean and the kids were sleeping and dinner was made and my husband wasn't home yet. So I sat on the couch with a magazine and then I heard the car coming in and I thought, oh no, what if my husband sees me sitting on the couch relaxing? That's bad because I'm always supposed to be busy. Actually, my husband loves seeing me relax. It's his happiest thing, but I didn't know that then. So I quickly got up and pretended to putter around. So that's
Mm.
me. And on the other side is my husband, who has a stressful job. He also gets a lot of social anxieties. He works with people, and he has social anxieties. So he comes home very stressed out. He needs to just kind of decompensate or whatever, decompose, whatever it is. He just needs to relax. And depending on his day, that can take, honestly, I don't understand it, but he does. It can take him like 3 or 4 hours just to unwind from his day. And I I didn't know what that was about. I thought he should come home and right away be helping me. I mean, we both work and we both wanted these kids and we both need to be working ourselves to the tail, till we're exhausted and drop into bed together. And I didn't know why he needed to go to his room and take a nap or listen to a podcast or read a book. I did not understand it, and I was very resentful. And I would try to draw him out of his man cave by giving him jobs, because doesn't everyone love being drawn out of relaxation by their wife giving them jobs? And I thought that's the way to draw him into our family. Tell him I need help with the kids, or I need help with dinner, or I need help with something, and force him to do it. So with time, now I understand what happened. He started not coming home after work. He started staying out to unwind. And this is where things got really rough because as soon as I was past my busiest stage and it would be 7 o'clock at night and he wasn't home, I would start calling him, embarrassingly enough, incessantly. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Why aren't you home? You don't care about me. You don't love me. I was busy the whole day and you never even came home once and you didn't even call to see how I was doing. And that didn't make him want to come home.
Really? He didn't immediately jump and say, oh my gosh, Susan, where have I
Oh,
been?
he
I'm
would
coming home
stay
right
out
now. No.
longer. And until like there were, he really did love me and I really did love him. And he would try to come home for me, but then he'd go back out. Like he'd come home for 45 minutes and then he'd say, okay, I got to go. Or all of a sudden he'd be gone. And it just got into this pattern where I would say once every 3 weeks, he'd be out till 3 o'clock in the morning for like 3 or 4 nights in a row. And I'd be hurt and heartbroken and sure
Yeah.
he hated me and he couldn't understand why I couldn't understand that it wasn't about me and that he just needs to relax and he just needs to take his time. And why can't I just get off his back and let him chill and not be so controlled? And then one of us would decide that we want rather the harmony than the fight. And one of us would forgive the other and we'd have like 2 weeks where things were good. But then which would means that he would white knuckle to stay home for me and be there for me. But then after 2 weeks of it, he would just, you
Couldn't
know,
take it.
go out and stay out till 3 in the morning. And I'd be calling him and crying and just ripping out my hair, actually, literally. And I didn't know what to do about it. I knew we were in this bad cycle. I knew we loved each other. I knew he definitely did not, I did not feel like he helped me with the kids at all. I felt like I had 5 kids. Well, then it was 4 kids because I had 3 kids plus him. I didn't know what to do about it at all. He would tell me I was bossy, and I really didn't know what he meant. I really didn't. What do you mean I'm bossy? I know how the girls or the baby needs stuff done. I'm not bossy. I just need your help. I'm the mother. And he was insistent. I was bossy.
Oh,
um,
which
and
hurts to
yeah,
hear,
it
right?
really
It
did
was,
hurt. And then when he'd come home late and I'd be crying, he'd be like, and I'd be telling him, you don't care about me and you're coming home late. He'd say, you're so unattractive when you cry like that. I'd be like, I don't know how to get you to listen to me and how to get you to care about me. And I'm just trying, I don't think I know how, which is tears. But that didn't manipulate him into being loving and kind the way your book did. So what happened? How did I get turned to you? So somewhere like because the bad part came at like the 7 year mark, when we had bought a new house and he had gotten, I convinced him to take a job he hated, which Laura would tell you never
oh,
to do. I thought, well, we're
oh,
buying this new house and it makes more economic sense for you to get this new job offer, even though you say you're going to hate it. All beginnings are tough, and just go for it. And I'll be here to help you through, and, just do it for the family. And he did. He took this job that he absolutely hated. And he needed to relax even more after the job because
mhm.
he hated his job. Also, we had just moved to a new house. So I was very bossy. I needed the pictures hung up yesterday. I needed the paint fixed today. And if he wasn't going to fix the paint, then I would go do the paint. I'd be like, hey, I need help with the paint. Can you go pick it up? And then the next day, he didn't do it yet. I would take all 4 kids or 3 kids at that time by myself to the paint store and get the paint myself because my husband just couldn't get it done in a quick enough manner. And so he thought I was very busy. Anyways, there had been some point that some friend had asked, like invited me to like a marriage, I don't know, class or something, that was some lady was giving. And I had gone with her at that point. I was married for 4 years and things were good, but I decided to go with my neighbor to this class because I thought, things could be better. And it was a nice class. She gave out some handouts, the lady. I ignored the whole thing. Then this now at the 7 year mark, I'm doing so things are really not at a good place. I'm doing some house cleaning and I come across this folder of some of the handouts that this lady had given. And one of them had an excerpt from your book, which described me and talked about how you were me and how this was a bad wife. And you had tips of how to make things better. And what shocked me about the excerpt was that you weren't saying anything that I thought was bad. You were just describing me. And I didn't know there was anything wrong with me. And to hear this lady who has this book, millions of copies sold, describe me as if that personality is somehow going to cause a hard marriage, I quickly ordered your book. And I did something a little different from all the other ladies I've heard on the podcast. I did not read it quickly. I read it so slow. I didn't turn the page until I had incorporated the first page into me. And like this was me. And I read it and I got that and I changed that. And then I read the next page. I got it and I changed it. And because of that, I told my husband about your book because I didn't get up to that page till way
Right.
later.
Sure.
But an amazing thing happened the next day. Like the next day, as soon as I stopped controlling how he cut the potatoes, um, he just started smiling at me more. And he just started hanging around more. And I can't remember the exact details because it was at this point, it's now 7 years ago from then. But what I do remember so clearly was it was 2 weeks in. So it's only about probably one chapter into the book. And we're at my parents' house for the extended weekend, which was always had been stressful for us because I couldn't understand why he couldn't just let me be, chill with my family and why he was so needy at at my parents' house. We had this marvelous weekend at my parents. And then we were going to the aquarium with all my side of the family, aunts, uncles, cousins, and I was super excited. And I made this little decision to myself that like, this day is too important to me. I'm not going to let my husband, I'm not going to practice the skills. So I told my husband when we're leaving and at what time he should wake up and how to get in the car and which way to drive, because this was such an important day to me and I just couldn't risk it going wrong. Yeah, this was some point where we're looking at the dolphins and I thought to myself, I don't know how he knows I'm not using the skills, but this is not worth it anymore. My husband is checked out. He's not looking at me with those eyes of like infatuation. And I better keep back on those skills. I did. And by the time we were in the car on the drive home, he was looking at me with those eyes again, Laura. And I just knew this was the most incredible book ever. I knew it was going to really change my life.
Wow. How did he know that you weren't practicing your skills that day?
Right?
I love it. So he was just naturally reacting to you. He was responding to you the way he had been responding when you were telling him how to cut the potatoes again, because you were back to that. And then, and as soon as you stopped, his infatuation, his attraction, you became more magnetic to him, it sounds like. Yeah. And so you got to see with your own eyes, like just from experimenting, like today, I'm not going to use them, which I love. Cause I think in a lot of ways, until you experiment, it all does sound kind of crazy, doesn't it? Like, what do you mean it's not going to work to tell them this is how I want the potatoes cut? I don't want the formica ruined. I don't want the potato peeler to be ruined. It all makes sense to us until you get to see in your husband's eyes that he has a different reaction to you. So good job, though, just implementing the skills little by little. It sounds like one page at a time.
Yeah.
And getting that different reaction. So that's how you knew they were working for you.
Yes. Now, Laura, I wanted to say what it means to live the skills nowadays, because when I was listening to your podcast, it was always like these happily ever afters, which they're happily ever afters. But I want to give 3 examples of why they're happily ever afters and the work we have done so that our life is wonderful.
I'd love to hear.
So, what does it mean to live the skills? So I'm going to say the story how it happened and then how it would have happened. My son is having attention difficulties in school, and we had been trying reflex integration and aqua therapy to help him so we didn't have to resort to medicine. And now we kind of needed to add on the medicine. And I really wanted my husband at that visit because I knew my husband has opinions about mood altering medications and has a lot of questions and concerns more so than me. So I made sure to, I said, I want you to be I'm making this appointment to talk about adding on like a Ritalin type medicine to our son. What time should we make it so that you can be at the appointment? And he picked the day and he picked the time. And then I remind, the day before I was like, oh, and tomorrow we have that appointment with the doctor. In the morning of, I was like, oh, I can't wait to see you at 12 at our appointment, which we can talk about, how that wasn't micromanaging, but it was good. Don't worry. And then I call him. We have an understanding because he'd rather me call to remind him of something than set an alarm. So I know with some marriages that can be overstepping, but my husband requested that actually when he has somewhere to be, if I call, which for me is annoying. I'd rather him set an alarm, but I can choose to be touched instead. That he likes my call to remind him. Do you want me to set an alarm in my phone to remind you? Yes. Can you please set an alarm in your phone to remind me? Oh, okay. All right. I love you. Sure. We'll do that. So I called him 15 minutes before the appointment. Can you just do it without me? Just do it without me. And I was like, well, I really can't do it without you. But I can cancel it if you want. And he's like, well, just do it without me. I was like, I can't do it without you. But I can cancel it. What would you like me to do? I was, well, I don't see why you can't do it without me. It can't be true. It can't be true for tricking yourself. Just do it without me. I was like, I really can't, but I really don't mind canceling it and we can reschedule. I need you here. I need you at the visit. He goes, oh, it's about you. You need me. Fine. So I'll come. But just so you know, it's not that the doctor needs to hear my side of it. It's just that you need me there. I said, thank you. I love you so much. Thank you for coming, even though it's just, thank you for coming anyways. I know it's hard for you. And he came and I gave him a kiss and we had the visit and everything was good. And what would have happened in the bad old days? I would have been so mad at him. I need you there. I can't explain to you the reasons why, because now my heart rate is up and my blood pressure is high and I can't think straight when my blood pressure is high. Do not say you can't be here. This whole thing, I've warned you 3 times and I can't believe you're doing this to me. You always do this to me, because you always throw in the always, right? You always do this to me and you're never there for me. You always back out last minute. Okay, if I would have duct taped and not said that part, I still would have slipped up at the second part where he said, well, I'll do it for you because I love you. What do you mean? It's not about me. It's about our son. I need you there because I always forget details when I'm talking about things. I always lose sight of like the larger picture and I get too stuck on certain details. I forget all the aspects of the question. I forget all the details of what's happening, and you stay calm and you remember all the details and you don't let your personal biases come in. And I need your presence so that we can present the picture properly. Don't you dare say it's because of me and because you love me. And so maybe he would have come in the end, but then I still would have failed at the third time because I would have looked huffy and puffy and resentful. And I wouldn't have just given him a kiss and said, thanks for being here. I love how caring you are. I love what a good husband you are. Thanks for doing this for me. I would have failed in one of those 2 places. Wasn't hard for me because I'm used to the skills, but I really want women out there to know that it's happily ever after because we get used to these skills and they become easy for us. But when you're working on it, it's so hard. And then
takes a lot of focus. What's that?
And then it becomes so good.
Yeah, then it becomes so good, right? Yeah, I think with any habit you're trying to change, it does take tremendous focus at first. But it's not. I love how you broke it down. There were three places you could have tripped up in that conversation, that where you have transformed the way you show up, and therefore your husband has changed the way he shows up, and now you have this peaceful home and lots of love and connection. It sounds like, even though and you're getting things done.
Yes.
He was at the appointment for your son. I love it. You mentioned you had a couple other examples too.
One really good story also just happened the other week. I'm always telling my husband that I love date nights, that, when he takes me out on a date, I feel like we're dating, which is just a, great romantic feeling. And it just makes us feel like that infatuation that sometimes can get lost in a marriage. So I'm always throwing that out. And the other night he comes home. I have 4 kids by now. He comes home at 8:00 at night and he tells me he wants to take me out for dinner. And I said, sure. Can I just put the littlest one to bed first? And I'll let the kids watch TV till we get home, which we never do on school nights. So that was going to be a real big deal for them. I figured dinner's not going to take more than an hour and a half. They'll go to bed late and everything will be fine. So I put the littlest one to bed. And as I'm carrying him off, he goes, I'm going to play a game of chess with our other son meanwhile. So great. Thanks for always being there to play with our kids. I love how you play with our boys. It's so good for them. And I put the baby to bed and I come out and he's still playing chess. So I clean the house and I get the girls in, I tell the girls to get in pajamas and brush their teeth, and he's playing chess. And the house is clean. And he's finally done. And I say, okay, guys, a little later than I thought. So me and Daddy are still going out. But if you put yourselves to bed nicely while I'm out, because my oldest is 13 by now, so she can babysit. If you put yourself to bed while I'm out, I'll give transfer $5 to the bank account. If you're in bed but not sleeping, I'll transfer $3. And if you're not in bed and not sleeping and you choose to watch TV instead, okay. I'll be disappointed, but okay. We went out. We had a great time. We came home. 2 kids got $5. 1 kid got a goodnight kiss. And It was great. Everything worked out beautiful. Now, let's walk you through my bad old days. Pretty easy to tell how that could have gone wrong.
Yes.
I would have told him, "Are you insane? It's 8 o'clock at night. Well, how can you possibly think? It's so disrespectful of you to think that I could just abandon my children at 8 o'clock at night." And if I had gotten over that hump, then I would have fallen into the next trap of like, "Are you serious? You're going to play chess with him? Because that's going to take you longer than bedtime. And then we're going to leave really late. Don't play chess with him." Or the next hump. "Oh my gosh, you're still playing chess. I can't believe it. We need to leave already. Just stop the chess game and let's go." No, that would not have been intimacy building at all. And I kept rolling with it with grace, and nothing bad happened. Everyone won. My kids have parents who love each other. They went to bed a little later. That's okay. They still won. And some
Mhm.
went to bed and got some money for it, and some didn't. And all is good, Laura. All is great.
Susan, beautiful example. I love your have you have opened your eyes so wide to look for ways that everyone can win instead of having to jump on your husband's paper and tell him what he needs to do and stop playing chess or yeah, that's a beautiful story. What else? You had one more example, I think.
Yes, just a quick little one. I wouldn't have even noticed it except that my mother pointed it out. And then after that, I want to tell you about how, as a very practiced and skilled Laura Doyle fan, we can still get tripped up and how we have to get back on that bandwagon when we do.
Oh, I
But
love
one
it.
more
I
little
love it.
story. I was we are at my mom's house, and we were all gonna go to the zoo. And I was getting everything ready, and I was not resentful at all. Um, I, 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 the main secret to the skills is the self-care and never getting resentful. That is step number one. So I was getting ready, and my husband was reading on the couch, and I was fine with that. Um, it didn't even occur, like, whatever. I was getting the bags ready. I was getting everything ready. We were going to the zoo soon. And my husband said to me, "I think the baby smells. Do you think the baby smells?" And I said, "I don't know." And I continued doing what I was doing. And then when we were in the car, my mother was like, "Can't believe how well you handled that. You know, your husband was just sitting there doing nothing while you were getting ready for the zoo. And then he asked you to change the diaper and you just didn't even like get upset." And I was so struck by that. Like, well, first of all, I didn't feel like I was doing everything, because if I would have felt like that, I would have decided not to pack lunches and to buy lunches,
Mm.
because that's where money can buy happiness.
Yes, it
If
can.
if you think you're getting resentful, don't do it. Pay for it to happen. So if I was stressed about preparing the lunches, I would have decided to buy lunch when we were out. It didn't bother me. And when he said, "Does the baby smell?" I've been using your skills for so long that didn't even think that he was, I didn't even take it as a hint of like, "You better change that dirty diaper because he's your son." I just took it for what it was. "Did you notice if the baby smells?" Which is all he said. And I said, "I didn't notice." So,
Truthful.
everything moved on nicely. And Laura, about money paying for happiness, little secret that worked for me. Can't promise it will work for everyone, although you've kind of promised it will work for everyone. Um, as I've come to learn, I was always economically very tight fisted, um, very made a penny stretch a mile.
Right.
My husband was always in charge of the finances, but I always nickel and dimed everything. And once I started these skills. I started using money to buy serenity and calmness. So, for example, if my husband had a hard day and he is, not checked in, he's in his little man cave,
Yeah.
instead of trying to draw him out, I'll just buy dinner that night, because I know that me cooking and serving dinner is going to make me feel resentful that he's sitting in his room watching TV. So even though he doesn't usually help me cook dinner and serve dinner, I know that I feel resentful when I'm cooking and serving dinner while he's in his man cave. So if he's if I feel like he's too far gone, like too much, in his man cave, and I'll just buy dinner because I know that way I won't be resentful of his little trip to Netherlands or whatever. So I've become more expensive as a wife. And lo and behold, when he does the checkbook, the credit card statements at the end of every month, he noticed my expenditures went up. He made a comment like, "Oh, I see we spend a little more." I said, "Yeah, I guess we do. Family's growing." And you know what? He's took out he refinanced our home, and he took that money to uh, invest, and we are doing great on that investment. And he makes sure that he grows his income to match my spending. It's okay. I don't overspend. I'm naturally a very conservative, financially conservative person. I spend as I need for my calmness. And lo and behold, he balances the checkbooks and the credit cards, and he doesn't want us to go into debt. So he figures out how to make more money.
Wow. For your happiness. He's like, if buying dinner makes my wife happy, then we got to figure out a way to make that keep
And he
happening.
just figures out how to invest so that he can support me.
I love it.
Yeah.
You inspired him.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he just, yeah, I guess.
Well, you never had to say to him, I'm going to have to, if you're going to be in your man cave, then I'm going to have to buy dinner because otherwise I'm going to
Never,
be resentful. And so
never.
that means you're going to have to find a way to make some more money.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Like that wouldn't
Right.
have done it. That wouldn't
It
have
just,
worked.
he looked at the checkbook, the
Yeah.
credit card statement, and he saw he better make more money.
Yeah. 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 He just sort of naturally took on that job of supporting his
Yeah.
family really well, which I
Yeah.
admire. I think that's great. Sounds like he's got such a great husband.
Yes. And I would have missed it. I really did think that I was married to a guy who just couldn't grow up. Always self-centered and thinking of himself before his kids, and always just checking out on us, really checking out on us a lot. And here we are, we got married, we decided to have these children together, and you keep checking out. Like, what do you want me to do? Have the kids and then you check out? It was just like, I didn't know what he was doing. And lo and behold, he was just trying to protect himself.
It does sound like you've done a great job creating emotional safety at your house.
Yeah.
He feels safe now.
Yeah. So this winter and a half, last winter, that's when it was. Last winter, we decided to do my kids and my husband really wanted to do a house swap for 2 weeks. And I wasn't excited about it, but I was so good at my skills at that point. And I thought, you know what, they're going to want it. And I'll just increase my self care during those 2 weeks and it will be fine. And I didn't realize how much it was taking from me. I'm usually really aware now, the new skill I have, being aware of my emotional level and what I can handle and what I can't. And I didn't realize how much those 2 weeks took from me until all my skills started slipping. And it was this slippery slope, Laura, where once like one skill started slipping, I started losing them all. Um, and things were really, he kept checking out again. And he was like, all the wonderful things were gone. I did not feel like a newlywed anymore. I did not feel like we were just infatuated with each other. I had felt like we had this real fun life where we had 4 kids, but we were also on a honeymoon and like life was just great. And that started going away. And I guess I was lazy to read your book again. I'm like, no, I'm sure I'm doing the skills. I mean, okay, I'll work on them tomorrow. And then I got COVID, and then so I was sick, and he really didn't show up for that. And he was like, "Yeah, you're faking it. You don't have it that bad. Just
Oh,
whatever it
ouch.
was." I was like, "Please be here for us." So I started reading the book again. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I lost all my skills. I haven't been doing any of this." And it was hard to get back on that bandwagon. I had to
Mhm.
join like a like-minded friends group. I had to listen to a lot of podcasts, and it was harder the second time to get back on that train because I guess the first time it was so exciting how amazing and instantaneous the changes were. And the second time, this stupid little voice kept coming into my head to say, well, this time he should work on himself. this time you don't have to do the change. Let him do the work this time. And it was so hard to get that voice to shut up and to just use that duct tape again. Because every time I had to take out the duct tape, that voice would go, let him work on himself this time. You did it last time. It was really hard.
Yeah.
But I did it a second time, and I'm sure I'll have to do it a third time. But that's okay. That's okay. That's what life's about. We get our ups and our downs, and it's just really worth it.
Oh yeah. And I think you're so normal, Susan. Like I don't know any women who have discovered this work and not felt at some time like, why doesn't he have to change? Why do I have to do all the work? I think we all have that thought. And of course, the only person you can change is you. It doesn't, right? By telling him how to change, that never got us anywhere. But I really appreciate you sharing the details. It's so accountable and it's so relatable that you were feeling resentful that you had to do all the work to really to do less work, right? To get more help and to get more support from him, probably, and to buy some happiness and things like that, like you're talking about, to get back on the skills. What was the hardest skill to pick up again after you felt like you had that?
Yeah, that's easier than what was the first time. So it was a long time ago. Um, the watching what I say. Um, when I felt he was wrong, not bossing him about the details of how to do something. That was okay. Accepting gifts, that was okay. I got good at that. I used to, by the way, for all gifts. Oh no, we don't have enough money for that, or oh no, that has too many calories. I was always spurring gifts, and now I accept everything that brings my way.
Oh,
So though that wasn't hard. I had kept that, but when he was wrong, like when he would say things like, um, "Oh no, I don't, I can't make it to the doctor's appointment," and to use the duct tape when I knew he was wrong. We made this appointment together, and I made it for you. And to use that duct tape when I knew he was wrong, because it's okay if he's wrong. It's okay. He's allowed to have thought processes that I disagree with. He's allowed to make conclusions that I think are silly or inaccurate. He's lived his life, and he's coming to those thought processes because of his life experiences. And even if I disagree, he's a smart man, and he's allowed to have his own thought processes. That was really the hardest one. But spouse fulfilling prophecy, where I'm telling him how awesome he is. Um, at times that are non-stressful, that really helped to get things like kind of jump started, because it made the good happen more often, and it was me thanking him when he did the right thing. So by focusing on the right, it made the bad happen less. So that was like that skill of spouse fulfilling prophecy, of complimenting the right, I didn't use at all last time. But this time, to get back on the bandwagon, because the duct tape was so hard for me, I found that complimenting the good was a really helpful tool for me.
I love that. So, what is your marriage like today?
Ooh, well, he loves coming home at night. He
Oh,
does. He
good.
loves coming home at night. And I thank him for it almost every night. I'll just tell him, oh, this is my favorite time of day, when we just are in bed together, just relaxing together. And I just every day thank him for it, and tell him how it's my favorite time of day, because I just want to encourage what I love, and I never want to stop encouraging what I love. And
Mm.
he anything I ask, he really tries his best to show up and say yes. So, right now, to do this meeting with you, he's doing 2 carpools, and he's going to be pitching in with the kids at a time that he's usually working. And I just told him I would love to do this meeting with Laura. Can you do it? And he was like, sure. And I thought he was
Oh,
going to have all sorts of problems with this meeting, because he's a private person. But he's like, wow, you're going to really like that meeting. I know how much she means to you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really going to like that meeting. Thanks so much for letting me do it, for letting it work. And like, for example, the other day I was buying shoes for the kids and I saw this husband there together with his wife. And the old me would have been like, man, my husband would never come shoe shopping with me. I'm always doing everything by myself. And when I looked at that husband, I knew if I wanted my husband to be there with me, he would make it work. And I came home and I actually said something to him. I was like, hey, because I've never needed him to help me with shoe shopping before. Like, hey, if I needed your help with shoe shopping, would you come with me to the shoe store? It's like, of course I would. And that was just what I wanted to hear. I didn't need his help, but I wanted to know that, yeah, of course he would. And that's something I never knew about my husband. He would do anything for me. Now, by the way, Laura, sometimes he says no. And that means I know without a shadow of a doubt that he wants to, but he can't. So if he's in his little man cave and I knock on the door and say, hey, I'd love to have supper as a family, dinner's in 10 minutes. And he says, you know, I just want to finish this game. I know he loves me. He knows how much I care about family having dinner as a family. And he said no because he can't, because for whatever, maybe he had a harder day, maybe he had a tense conversation with his brother. He's a person with a life of his own. He's got emotions that he has to deal with. And so if he says no, it's not because he doesn't love me. It's because he's in the middle of processing something else and he just needs to zone out for that.
Wow. So respectful, Susan.
Yeah.
That's impressive because I think a lot of women could we could all get into complaining, right? We should have dinner as a family. I'm sure you can stop your game long enough to have dinner or whatever. Or you can play that later and you just don't go there.
Right. Yeah. Because I respect him enough. He shows up almost, let's say it's even only 80% of the time. I think it's more. But let's say it's only 80% of the time. Doesn't he deserve, and this is what I've learned from you, doesn't he deserve some of my respect and trust back at him? That if he says no, he obviously can't. And what I've learned is that can't sometimes is an emotional thing. It's not always a physical thing when we say I can't. And he's allowed to have emotional I can'ts too, just like I'm allowed to have them.
Like I can't make dinner tonight or without becoming resentful, for
Right.
example. You're saying, yeah.
Right.
I love it. Well, what is your tip for a woman who is where you were, where she feels like her husband just is checked out? He is not showing up. He's staying out. He's staying at work late, staying out until 3 in the morning. And she wants what you have now, where he's there for dinner 80% or more of the time. And she feels like he would do anything for her and it feels like a honeymoon again. Where should she start? What should she do?
Trust Laura. Read that book, The Surrendered Wife. That first book, it's a Bible. It really is. Just I know a lot of people read it quick, but there is so much depth to it. Like every line is on purpose. And take it from me because I've tried playing around with it. I've tried saying it different ways, and I've tried fine tuning it. No, no, no. You can try if you want, but in the end of the day, the way that works best is this book. And if you can't do it by yourself, then get on the like mind, get a group of women and do it together, or get a coach. But even when you just have three women together doing it together, for example, so important to have a friend. My husband, so I told you my son, instead of the Ritalin, first step we did was a form of OT called reflex integration, and it's in the water. So my son has swimming lessons, we call it, twice a week. And one time the snow was melting on the ground and I forgot to pack my son's slippers. So when my husband dropped him off, now my son could have put on his shoes instead of his slippers, or he could have said to my husband, it's cold, can you carry me? My husband was on a work phone call while he was doing this transport. Um, and my husband has never walked outside without slippers or shoes. So he doesn't know how cold the bare ground can be. And this is a horrible story, but it's not. He made my son run to the pool without slippers or shoes on. When I heard, I was horrified. I mean, so get off the phone, focus on your kid, tell him to put on his shoes, carry him. Do not make him walk outside on the ground when there's melting snow. Such a horrible story. And I knew I couldn't come into the house without blowing up at him. So I called a like minded friend who's read your book and done some programs of yours. And she was like, Susan, did anything bad happen? I'm like, yeah, my son is traumatized. He's like, really? Because I think he'll be more traumatized if you get in a fight with your husband. Okay, that's one deep breath to take. Number one. Number two, why don't you teach your son some skills like wear your shoes next time? Number three, why don't you try not forgetting the slippers next time? And number four, you can be grateful that your husband did a carpool during his work hours and was flexible enough to just do the work phone call while doing the carpool. Um, but in the end of the day, just remember your son will lose out the most because you're so upset about your son and you're so upset that he might be traumatized. But all will be worse for your son if you don't calm down before you go into the house. That was so helpful. And I don't know that I could have done that without calling a like minded friend. So that kind of support is really helpful.
Absolutely. Such wonderful wisdom and she was such a stand for your greatness. Like you can show up as the kind of mother you want to be and the kind of wife you want to be by changing your focus to these other things, which you did. And I give you so much credit for that. You are actually completely amazing because that it takes so much humility and so much accountability and so much commitment. And you are all of those things.
Thank you. It's all because of you. You are my real hero. I don't know how I really don't know how you figured this all out. It's like this secret, like key to happiness, like these secret words and these secret ways where we can actually become Cinderella. And, well, let's say Kate Middleton. We can become a princess. Now, it's not always easy to be Kate Middleton. It's not always easy to be a princess, but boy, is it worth that hard work. And I don't know how you figured it out. The women who I know who have read your book and implemented your skills universally are happy. I don't know how you did it.
Wow. So that's great to hear. Thank you so much. And what do you think if you could go back in time and talk to Susan from before? What would you say to her that you know now?
Sure. Um, well, to give you a little hint, I was raised that the most important thing I could be was capable, responsible, self sufficient, and a multitasker. That was what was ideal. And my father used to always say, oh, Susan, she's the best. Susan can do anything. And when I was learning your skills, I said to my father, he said, oh, Susan, you're the best. I said, actually, Dad, can you not say that to me? Because I don't want to be the best anymore. That's not my goal. My goal is to be calm and serene and to protect my inner serenity. And being the best is just not my goal. So can you please stop saying that to me? And he did. And then about, I don't know, a year ago, he accidentally said it. And then he was like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to say that. And I was like, you know what, Daddy? You can say it because I'm okay by now. Like, I'm so okay with not being the best that if you want to compliment me, go for it. It's not, I've truly incorporated this new goal into my life. So I just, I always thought like, I was the oldest of a large family and I was my mom's right hand. And I was just so capable. I could do everything by myself. I never needed anyone's help. And I was never weak and I was never needy. And I thought that was good. And I had a great childhood. I did. But I came into marriage thinking that needy is bad. And I wish I could have known that a man wants to help you and he wants to see you relax and he wants to give you gifts. And if you don't need anything from him, you're cutting off his manhood. You really are. So you need to be feminine. And I really kind of curse American society because they're sending us all these horrible messages where we think we need to be non feminine. And you can find true happiness when you embrace your femininity. And one of the funny little things, Laura, is I did become more sensitive emotionally. I used to be very strong emotionally, and things really wouldn't upset me emotionally. And I did become more emotional, feminine, I call it. And that's okay. And sometimes I'll laugh at my husband. I'll be like, I'm sorry, I know I became a little feminine. And he's like, I choose feminine over masculine any day of the year. Um,
Yes.
so it's okay to be girly. We don't have to. And I still have a very high respected job, and I do great at work. And I'm the boss at my work. I'm not the boss, but I command a lot of respect and power in my work. And I turn that right off when I get home, and I become incapable in a good way and needy
Yes.
in a good way. And it was funny actually, because the other day I was telling my husband a story of something that came up at work. And he was like, well, I hope you didn't say it like as forceful as that. And I did. I said it as forceful as that. But that's okay, because I wasn't talking to my husband. And, you know, he doesn't have to meet me at work if he doesn't want to. uh, so it's good.
You change your hat when you come home
Yeah.
from work.
And it's not hard. It's not hard. Really isn't. It's
Yeah.
not like you have to remember, am I in my marriage or in my office? It's, you just put on a different persona. It's not hard. It's not hard. It's not putting on a different persona. I carry a lot of responsibility at work, and I don't carry that responsibility at home. I get to take off the responsibility. So it's not even changing my hat. It's taking off the responsibility, which is nice. It's, a little shoulder shrug, because you're taking off that responsibility. And every day when I go to work, I have to put on that responsibility. And I'm so grateful to be married to a man who lets me take off the responsibility when I get home.
Yes. I love that. Well, you are inspiring, and I think you're just amazing. You're such an accomplished wife, such a successful, accomplished wife and
I just wish
mother.
someone would have told me sooner.
I
Sooner.
know.
Like, what? Let's scream it from rooftops.
Right? Isn't it just so
Yeah.
crazy? It feels like it's still a secret in a way.
Yes. Why?
Well, and we all hear it when we're ready too, in some
I
ways,
guess.
right? Like, I don't think I would have been ready. It doesn't sound like you were ready when you first got exposed
Right.
to it. It didn't fit for you, or it wasn't just
Right.
wasn't relevant, maybe.
Right.
But it's sort of like this secret hidden garden that you go into when you're ready.
Yeah.
But it's such a joyful place to be. And you really exemplify that. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story of how you transformed your whole family.
My whole family, Laura. Thank you so, so much from all of us.
If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. And now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award.
It's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice of the week.
And the advice that has me aghast this week was sent to me by a longtime student. It's from a senior couples and family therapist and author who asks on social media, have you and your partner discussed your relationship's boundaries? So here's a big shout out to this student who recognizes terrible relationship advice from a mile away. Thanks for sending this submission, which is great because it's awful. And thanks for supporting me and this podcast and the mission to end world divorce. I am so grateful for the love. So the therapist provides a boundaries health check which she suggests that you sit down to do with your partner, each of you with your own pen and paper. And the first of 26 questions on the checklist is it okay to have a close friendship with someone of the opposite sex? Is it okay? So I had to read this to John because so I said to him, like, check out this ridiculous relationship advice. And then I read him that first question, is it okay to have a close friendship with someone of the opposite sex? And John then raised his hand and said, I know what I'm supposed to say. Oh, no, it's not okay to have a close friendship with someone of the opposite sex. I would never do that. And then we laughed, gleefully rolled our eyes, and felt just too self-satisfied to read too much further from this ridiculous list, which should be more accurately called things you're afraid will happen and want to focus on so you can give yourself the feeling that you're preventing them checklist. It's very thorough in that regard, if it was called that. It's not like most breakdowns happen because of a misunderstanding, right? Like you don't go, oh, you don't want me to have friendships with people of the opposite sex? I had no idea. If you were to just mention that, now we're having marital crisis because you just never told me that. No, that's not something you are trying to prevent here. I mean, a more honest way to approach this topic would probably be to say, I'm scared you're going to cheat. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of detailed hypothetical questions about your intentions to make sure that you never do. Only that won't work. And actually, I'm just letting you know that I don't trust you and sort of projecting onto you my fears. It may or may not have anything to do with you. Because the trouble is, jealousy works the opposite of the way you want it to. The more you ask questions like that, the more controlling and resistible you are, in my experience. And the more you're giving oxygen to an outcome you don't want. Also, it's just not up to me to decide who my husband is friends with. I could try to discourage him from having friends who are women, but that would definitely be oppressive for him. And it would also be exhausting for me. And it would certainly hurt the intimacy between us. So for those reasons, the advice to give your relationship a boundaries health check is the very, very worst relationship advice I have heard all week. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, I'll share what to do when your husband never does anything special for you. In the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that the Empowered Wife podcast has been downloaded over 1 million times. So thank you. I'm so grateful and happy to be with you on this journey of making our marriages last and thrive.